Today we will study about this, the fifth unit, that is ecology. And under ecology we have 4 chapters, and we will start with the first chapter, that is organisms and populations. So before that, let us first try to know the definition of ecology. Ecology is the branch of science that deals with the interaction and relationship between the organisms and their environment. Now, to understand all the 4 chapters, we have to know the levels of organization. So in our these earlier classes, we have learned about the cells, tissues, organ systems. So when we're talking about this, we are talking about the lower levels of organization. So we have this, the levels of organization starts from macromolecules, macro or micro molecules. So when these molecules aggregate together, they form a cells, and cells aggregate to form tissues. Now again, tissues aggregate to form organs. Now organs, they again aggregate together to form a organ system, and after that again it gives rise to organisms. So till these organisms, below these organisms, all these are lower levels of organization. Now this individual organism, they aggregate or like they come together to form a population. Example, like we have a deer. So like if we have a group of deer, then we can call them a population. Again, this population can also give rise to, when 2 or more population comes together, it will give rise to a community. Again, community gives rise to ecosystem, and finally biome. Now, biome is nothing but it is a large terrestrial community with specific kinds of plants and animals within a particular geographical area, and that has a particular type of climatic conditions. Now, under this biome, we have different type of habitats, and all the habitats are not same. They are different. They are different from one another. Like desert is very different. The climatic condition of desert is very different from the climatic conditions of tropical forest or a rainforest. So there are so many variations in habitats. And then it is surprising to know that organisms, they do not live only on these favorable habitats, but even in the extreme and harsh conditions also, some organisms can survive there. Now, so there are some organisms which are able to survive even in a very harsh and extreme conditions, like the deserts in Rajasthan, rain-soaked forests in Meghalaya, and in polar regions, and in deep oceans, thermal springs. They are able to survive there. And there is a variation in all these habitats because of both the abiotic as well as the biotic factors. So now let us study what are some major abiotic factors that influence an organism. So some of the major abiotic factors are, number 1, temperature. So this temperature is very important for all the organisms. So temperature varies from place to place, and it decreases from the equatorial. Suppose this is our Earth, so we have equatorial region here. So the temperature will be very high at this equator region, and as we go progressively away from the equator towards the pole, the temperature decreases. And temperature also decreases from the plains to the high mountain tops. That means in the plain areas, the temperature will be more. And as we go up at the mountain tops, the temperature will slowly go lesser and lesser. Now, temperature ranges from sub-zero levels in the polar areas and high altitudes to more than 50 degrees Celsius in the tropical areas in summer. This temperature even exceeds 100 degrees Celsius in thermal springs and deep sea hydrothermal vents. And this temperature affects the kinetics of enzymes. It also affects this metabolic activity and physiological functions of these organisms. Now, each and every species are able to survive in a certain range of temperature. Like there are some organisms which are able to survive in a wide range of temperature. Like so they can be found in any parts of the globe. That means they can be found in the equatorial region as well as in the temperate regions or polar regions if they have a wide range of temperature tolerance. Now, such organisms are called eurythermal organisms. Why? Because they have a very wide range of temperature. And most of the organisms are like they are able to survive only in a certain range of temperature. That means they are having a very narrow range of temperature. So this temperature tolerance, if a species is able to tolerate a certain range of temperature, their distribution in all over the globe is also determined by that. So organisms which have a very wide range of temperature, they are called eurythermal, and those who have a very narrow range of temperature are called stenothermal. So the next factor will be water. That is water. This is also another very important factor for an organism. As we all know that life first originated in water, and then we cannot sustain our life without water. And water is in a desert, the amount of water is very less. So organisms in this desert area, they are highly adapted. The amount of water in desert area is very less as compared to this tropical rainforest and then in other areas. So organisms living there, they have very special adaptations which make them possible to survive there. And then there are many important reasons why water is very important for an organism. Like the productivity also is dependent on the availability of water, and even their distribution also. Like cactus cannot, like any other normal plants cannot grow in desert, or like cactus doesn't grow in other parts of the ecosystem. So the productivity and this distribution of organisms is highly dependent on the availability of water. Now, taking the example of these aquatic organisms. Okay, in desert, of course, since the availability of water is less, so like organisms have some special adaptations. But in water, aquatic animals, they might not face any kind of water-related problems. We think like that, but it is not so. Even aquatic organisms also, they face problems like it might be the salinity or the pH level, chemical compositions of this water. So even aquatic organisms also, it is not like that. It is not that they don't face any difficulty, but they also face difficulty. Salt concentration in inland waters is less than 5, and in sea it is around 30 to 35, and in these hypersaline lagoons it is more than 100, the concentration of salt in water. So now even organisms also, they have aquatic organisms also, they have a very wide range of these survival. So there are some organisms which are able to survive in a very hypersaline water, and there are some organisms which are able to survive only in a less saline water. So those organisms which are able to, which have a wide range of range of tolerance in regard of this salt concentration, they are called euryhaline. And then those organisms which have a very narrow range of these salt concentration, they are called stenohaline. Next abiotic factor is light. And then this light is also very important for the organisms. As we all know, the plants are performing this photosynthesis by using the sunlight. So for most of these photosynthetic plants, this light is very important. And some small herbs and shrubs which are growing in the forest, they are also able to carry out the process of photosynthesis even in the very low light conditions, because they are constantly overshadowed by the canopy of the tall trees. Since these shrubs and herbs are growing under the tall trees, often the sunlight they are being overshadowed by the tall canopy trees. So they are able to perform this photosynthesis even in the low light conditions. And then not only that, plants depend on sunlight or light for so many reasons. Like they depend on light for this flowering, and then the intensity and the duration of light is also very important for the plants. Like Mirabilis chalapa, it is also known as the 4 o'clock plant. Why? Because it only blooms in the evening. That means the intensity of light required by this very plant is not that high. It is very low. So like plants, even animals also, they depend on light for so many reasons, like for foraging, for reproduction, for migration. Like many animals, they migrate from one place to another in search of this better suitable light intensity, and then this shows that plants and animals are highly dependent on the light for all their life activities. So the next abiotic factor is the last one. This will be the last one. So it is soil. Soil is also a very important factor that influences the organisms. Like if the soil is fertile, and then like whichever plant is able to grow there, they will be growing. But if the soil is not fertile or not suitable for a particular plant, then it will be not surviving there. Suppose the quality of the soil, the grain size, or like the water holding capacity of the plants. In desert, we mostly find sand. So sand has a very less water holding capacity. The pH of the soil and then the mineral composition of the soil is also very important for these plants. And the quality of the soil, the grain size of the soil, the composition of the soil is also very important to decide which plant will be available or which one plant will be surviving in what type of soil. So these are all the major abiotic factors that influence the organisms. Hope you all understood.